Part 1. The Day of Judgment. The courtroom was already full when Amaka arrived. Not with strangers. With family. Her mother sat stiffly in the front row, lips pressed into a thin line. Her older brother stared straight ahead, as if eye contact with anyone might break something fragile inside him. Two neighbors from their street had come, whispering quietly. Even Daniel's class teacher sat near the back, clutching a blue notebook. Everyone had come to watch a family split in half. Amaka tightened her grip on her handbag and walked to the front bench. Across the aisle sat Chinedu, her ex-husband, in a neatly pressed shirt that looked freshly ironed for the occasion. He didn't look at her. He looked straight ahead, jaw set, eyes hollow, but stubborn. Nearby, in a chair too big for his thin shoulders, sat their 10-year-old son. Daniel swung his legs slowly, shoes barely touching the floor. He held a small notebook in his hands and hugged it as if it were a shield. The court clerk called the case. Custody hearing. Chinedu Okoye versus Amaka Okoye. A murmur moved through the room like wind through dry leaves. Amaka stood. Chinedu stood. The judge, a calm woman with tired eyes that had seen too many broken homes, waved her gavel. "This matter has gone on long enough," she said quietly. "Today, we will conclude it." Amaka swallowed. 6 months. 6 months of accusations, counter-accusations, affidavits, and late-night crying when Daniel was asleep in the next room. 6 months of hearing neighbors whisper. 6 months of watching her son pack a small bag every weekend to visit his father, then return quieter each time. 6 months of waiting for this day. "Counsel," the judge said, turning to Amaka's lawyer, "you may proceed." Her lawyer stood smoothly. "My lord, we maintain that Mrs. Okoye has been the child's primary caregiver since birth. She provides stable housing, schooling, and daily supervision. The child has lived continuously with her. We request full custody with structured visitation." Structured visitation. The phrase felt cold in Amaka's chest, like Daniel was a visiting object, not a boy who still crawled into her bed during thunderstorms. Chinedu's lawyer rose next. "My lord, we contend that Mr. Okoye has been systematically alienated from his son. He has been denied meaningful access and portrayed as irresponsible. We will show that he provides a more stable emotional and financial environment." Amaka almost laughed. The judge nodded. "Call your first witness." Chapter 2. The stomachache. It had started with something small, almost harmless. Amaka sat very still on the hard wooden chair, hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes fixed on Chinedu as he took the stand. From the outside, she looked composed, almost detached. Inside, her thoughts were loud. It had started with a stomachache. That was how all disasters began, quietly, almost politely, before announcing themselves in full. She could still see that night clearly. Daniel curled on the bathroom floor, small hands clutching his belly, his face pale and slick with sweat. Chinedu pacing, the smell of antiseptic at the hospital, the cold brightness of emergency lights, the doctor's voice, calm but urgent. Severe dehydration, acute gastrointestinal distress, then the IV, the steady beeping monitor, her son lying too still on a hospital bed. Daniel had always been lively, noisy, constantly moving. Seeing him, silent and weak, had felt unnatural. Like the world had tilted slightly off its axis. Amaka had stood by the bed, gripping the rail so tightly her fingers hurt. Across from her stood Chinedu. He had tried to sound calm. It was probably something minor, he said at first, just a reaction. But she remembered what he had said earlier that day, how casually he had mentioned letting Daniel taste something new. A sample, a harmless experiment. He was always bringing home new products, new snacks, new mixtures to test. He enjoyed discovery, enjoyed novelty, enjoyed risk more than he admitted. She had warned him countless times. "Stop letting him taste everything," she had said more than once. "He's a child, not your assistant." Chinedu had laughed then. "Easy, confident, certain he knew what he was doing. Now their son lay in a hospital bed. Amaka had stared at the IV dripping slowly into Daniel's small arm and felt something inside her shift. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just enough. Resentment began quietly. Part 3. Stories under Oath. Chinedu was called to the stand. He walked forward calmly, took the oath, and sat. His voice, when he began speaking, was steady. I work as a civil engineer. I have a 3-bedroom apartment. Daniel has his own room. I am financially capable of providing everything he needs. He spoke like a man presenting a project proposal. Measured, controlled, professional. Amaka watched him and felt something twist inside her chest. This was the man she had once laughed with at midnight over burnt rice. The man who used to carry Daniel on his shoulders through the park? Now he spoke about his son like a responsibility he was prepared to manage. Mrs. Okoye, his lawyer continued, often returns home late due to her business. The child is frequently left with neighbors. His homework supervision is inconsistent. Amaka's nails dug into her palm. That was not true. Not like that. Yes, she ran a small catering business. Yes, there were late nights sometimes. But Daniel was never neglected. Never. Chinedu continued, voice firm. I believe Daniel needs structure, discipline, a stable routine. I can provide that. The judge watched him carefully. Thank you, she said. Cross-examination? Amaka's lawyer stood. Mr. Okoye, how many school meetings did you attend in the last 3 years? Chinedu hesitated. I work frequently. So none? Silence. How many doctor visits? Another pause. I send money regularly, he said. That was not my question. The courtroom grew very still. After several more questions, Chinedu stepped down. Then Amaka was called. She walked to the stand, heart pounding loudly. When she spoke, her voice trembled at first, then steadied. I have cared for Daniel every day since he was born. I take him to school. I help with homework. I run my business to support us. My aunt lives nearby. He is safe. He is loved. Her lawyer guided her gently through questions about routine and home life. Then came the cross-examination. Mrs. Okoye, Chinedu's lawyer, said smoothly, is it true you sometimes return home after 9 p.m.? Yes, when I have large catering orders. And during those times, Daniel stays with neighbors. With our neighbor, my aunt, Jane. She has known him since birth. So you admit you are frequently absent. I am working, Amaka replied sharply. To provide for him. The lawyer nodded. Of course, but would you agree a child benefits from consistent parental presence? Amaka raised an eyebrow. I do my best. Part 4. Suspicion. Fear is loud. Suspicion is patient. Chinedu felt it too, though he responded differently. He moved through those hospital days with a stubborn calm that only made Amaka angrier. He checked charts, asked doctors questions, sat through visiting hours with a controlled expression. It may not even be what I gave him. He kept saying, I ate it too and I'm fine. He sounded logical, reasonable, and somehow that made it worse. Amaka wanted guilt, apology, fear that matched her own. Instead, she got measured explanations and careful distance. By the 3rd day in the hospital, they were speaking less. By the 5th day, almost not at all. She began replaying everything she had ever accepted about him. His carefree nature, his confidence that sometimes bordered on arrogance, the way he rarely apologized, unless he was absolutely certain he had done something wrong. Once she had admired that certainty. It had felt like strength. Now it felt like pride. How had she loved that so easily before? Her thoughts wandered further back, then sideways, to something she had tried not to examine too closely. Daniel's school, the meetings. The teacher, Miss Janice Oldham, was composed, intelligent, attractive in a quiet, effortless way. She was about Amaka's age. Every time Chinedu attended school meetings, he listened to the teacher with an attentiveness that unsettled Amaka. He asked questions, took notes, remembered details. At first, Amaka had appreciated it. A father invested in his child's education. Then slowly, almost without permission, another thought crept in. Why does he listen to her like that? He quoted the teacher at home. mentioned her observations, repeated her suggestions. Sometimes he defended her opinions with a firmness he rarely used with Amaka. It began to feel less like respect for a teacher and more like admiration for a woman. She never confronted him directly, not at first. But suspicion is patient. It grows in silence. By the time Daniel was discharged from the hospital, Amaka was already carrying too many unspoken thoughts. Fear for her child, anger at Chinedu, doubt about his judgment, and now jealousy she did not want to name. The hospital incident became the center of everything. Every small disagreement circled back to it. Every silence grew heavier because of it. Every glance carried unasked questions. One evening, exhausted and raw, she finally said it. Maybe you should focus less on impressing that teacher and more on your family. Chinedu had stared at her, stunned, then hurt, then defensive. And just like that, something fragile between them cracked.